Hello everybody and welcome back to Kerbal Space Program, where last episode we returned home from the surface of Minmus, and that is great. The question is, what are we going to do next? So we need to start thinking about starting to make our actual colonies. Now we can plant a flag on Minmus? Okay, sure. We'll go back there eventually, but I don't know that now is the time that we're going to do that. And let's see here. Wait, we didn't get credit for bringing our green sandstone back? Hang on, we definitely did that. Oh, wait, I'm dumb. Okay, so here's the thing. I completely forgot about this. When we last left off, we had landed at Kerbal. We had not recovered it because we were sliding. And we did end up sliding for a long time. Now that I remember that fact, we're good to go. Okay. I was very confused for a second there, but then I was like, hang on a moment. And yeah, so we were sliding, and this ended up sliding for like 15 minutes after I ended the episode, so it's a good thing. We're going to have to recover this, and I had completely and totally forgotten about that. So that is perfect. We're going to fly on out here and return this. So, not too much to do here. I mean, we could grab a surface sample here in theory. Bob, EVA, grab a surface sample. There we go. So, apparently we can't climb back in from here. There we go. So, we landed, like, up here, and we slid all the way down this way. Although, we were by a tree. That might be somewhat randomized. There was a tree, like, right here when we stopped sliding. That's interesting. At any rate, we're going to recover this vessel, and that will finish that contract. So that's perfect. Oh, I can't believe I forgot that. That's insane. Well, at any rate, it's all good. So we're going to recover that. That'll get our green sandstone finished up, and we'll have more slots available. That'll get a lot of contracts finished, actually. So let's finish that one up, and we will recover just a crazy amount of science here. What do we get? Come on, KSE. You can do it. I have faith in you. There we go. So 802 science from that one. Beautiful. Everybody is ready to go. People have advanced to level 2. Cool. So with that, of course, our contract is complete with our green sandstone. So we can hop back in here, and this is docking on or around Minmus. Okay, the rest of these we're unlikely to do anytime soon, so we'll grab that. And building a new surface outpost on the moon is definitely something we'll look to do. The question is this the time for that? Plant flag on moon, plant flag on Minmus. These will both happen over time. All three of these will, actually. So we need to go back to the moon, I think. We need a facility supporting at least 5 Kerbals. We need an engineer on the outpost. We need to maintain stability for 10 seconds, and we need to land our outpost on the moon. Okay, so we need to be starting to think, I think, at this point, about what constitutes colonized. This would be like the core of our colony. This would not be the whole colony, for sure. We would want things like a science module. Okay, so we'd want a core, we'd want maybe a habitation module, a science module. We would want something along the lines of probably a power module. And then for like some sort of exporting, perhaps we would have a mining module. I don't know. That would be kind of interesting. So that would be essentially like 5 modules there, right? And we'd have to design all of those. Now, I'm not expecting that to be super huge. We're just establishing the baseline for a colony. And then the idea is from there, the colony can develop itself. That would be the idea. We want to get it self-sufficient. So the first thing we need to do is get the core in there. And in order to do that, we're going to go ahead and open up our heavy lifter because that should be more than sufficient for that. We are not going to be utilizing this design though. That's for sure. We're going to drop this and we're going to drop everything up here. This is all going away. So we're just going to use this to lift it. Then we need to have a facility that hosts at least 5 Kerbals. So a Mark 1 command pod would be awkward. And the reason a Mark 1 command pod would be awkward is because it's not the right size. So a Mark 2 command pod is still not the right size. I'm not sure that we get the right size though. So we might want to run something like this, running it with a probably white variant. Although, if it's going to be on the moon and Minmus, maybe we should make it dark for contrast purposes. So this is not planned to come back. We would probably want to run an aerodynamic nose cone, although we'd want to run a, miniature rocket nose. Can that be metal? Yes, it can. Fantastic. So we would run something kind of like this. A Mark II command pod has seating for what, 2? Yes, seating for 2. So that's fine. From there, we could bring in a hitchhiker storage container, which isn't quite the right size, but that's okay. So we would bring this guy in. Well, we would need... I'm just thinking here about, future components. None of that's particularly relevant at this time. I think that's the way we'll put it. So we're going to bring this in on, a X200 16 tank, I think. And we could also have, a fuel tank adapter if we can find the correct size. Something like this. Kind of like that. Since when does hitchhiker storage containers have that much inventory? Oh my, I didn't realize that. They have 4 empty seats and a crap ton of inventory. Okay, that's good to know. I'll have to remember that for future missions. So we would end up landing on this, right? We will need some form of power generation, although we don't need much. This is probably not going to turn very easily with the reaction wheel that is in there. We could consider just putting in a small inline reaction wheel up here to assist with that. I don't necessarily think that's a huge benefit, though. I do want to know how sluggish this is to turn. So we have a good amount of fuel here between these 2 locations, and it should fuel flow through this hitchhiker storage container. We can test that as well. Let's just plop a poodle onto here. And this would kind of be our core, and we're planning to attach a lot of things to it, right? Via docking ports, or maybe even via just claw grabbing. No, I think either would work for contracts. So the idea would then be that we can either run Clampatron docking ports like this, and we'd quad couple those, or we could claw grab. The question is, which do we think is less likely to create a Kraken? That's the question here. And the solid answer to that is, I have no idea. We don't have access to the claws right now. We could get them, most likely. But we would certainly need some form of power generation here. I think just a pair of 1x6s. Something like that. That should be more than enough power generation for this capsule. And then, of course, we're going to need some landing considerations here. So I would like to get some landing legs on this. The question that I have right now is, are these LT1 landing struts, A, large enough, and B, wide enough? I think the definite answer to that is no. We need LT2s. So I'm just going to attach this like so for right now. This is not good. We're going to want to remember to put a decoupler. I just saved that over the moon landing machine. I'm dumb. Well, we're going to call this the colony core. And if we want to redo the moon landing machine, we'll have to remake it. Honestly, I'm not sure how much we're going to need to redo that, though, because it should be fine. It should be fine. So we're going to hop out of here. This is by no means completed. And we're going to head into the research and development. So let's see what we've got here. Any moment now, KSC, you can do it. There we go. So we're going to hop into R&D, and we want to land on LT2s, ideally. So we can grab LT2s. That's 160 research. That's not much. What else are we interested in having here? Well, we are potentially interested in advanced grabbing units. So we can grab that, and also all of this stuff might be useful for us as well, of these robotic parts. So we can research that as well. This stuff in this tier is super cheap. We may as well just get it done. And then precision propulsion, I don't think we're going to be utilizing any of this at this time. Maybe eventually, but for right now, I don't think so. I don't think we're going to be looking for any planes at this moment either, so that should be no problem. Larger reaction wheels is something that we can make a solid argument for. We'll go ahead and grab that, and potentially even larger command modules, like the Mark 1-3 command pod. We can make a solid argument for that as well, which means that we can grab one more thing in this tier. We cannot grab anything up over here just yet. But realistically, we don't really need anything here. If we grab it, it'll just be to finish it up. So I think we'll go ahead and grab the precision propulsion for now. Okay, back into the VAB. We are going to potentially make some modifications here. Obviously, this was incomplete. And if we're going to run that, that means we don't need the Mark 2, or this version of the command pod. What one is that? Mark 2? Yeah. We now need the Mark 1-3. That does drop our amount of available fuel here. So, do we seriously have this going on? Okay, that's exciting. We can definitely think about extending this X216 over to be, instead, something along the lines of an X232. Just to compensate for the fuel loss. There we go. And then a rocket nose cone that we almost certainly do want to decouple. I'm going to turn our decoupler around here in the hopes that the decoupler goes with it. And then we are going to run, let's see, this nose cone? It's not perfect looking, but it'll do the trick. Excellent. Unfortunately, we can't get rid of these black bits here. I would like this section to be basically all white. If that's the case, maybe we go for something like this. Yeah, that's not terrible, I think. That should do. Okay, so this would be functionally our core here. Now, the other bits are going to be unmanned. And that'll be fine. So we'll need to get them here eventually. We're also likely going to want to have an extendable ladder over here, so that we can actually climb our way down a bit, and then we'll toss in another extendable ladder here. Hopefully that'll be long enough to get to the ground. And let's check in on our LT2s. And the question is this wide enough? Well, for one thing, this is only 3. I did want that to be in quad symmetry. So we'll do something like that. Is this wide enough to grant sufficient stability? If not, and I think we're going to make it a little bit wider, we can always toss in a modular girder segment, something like this. And then have that go like that. That will make this a lot more stable. Just by doing that. Okay, we don't have power on here, and we're missing a lot of amenities with this colony core, right? There's no doubt about that. We're going to need docking ports on here unless we go with the grabbing units. I think we're going to go with docking ports. Do we go with docking port juniors or full-size docking ports? I feel like full-size docking ports might be slightly better. And we're going to have to create something, and this ladder might be a problem, but we can always retract. Well, this ladder is going to be where? Inside of this docking port. So that is definitely a potential issue. Noted. For the time being, we're going to get rid of that, and we'll just retract this ladder. Okay. So we'll need to have our vehicles for our other setups be at like adjustable heights to be able to reach this, because we don't actually know what height this is going to be at on the various locations that this is going to be used, right? This on Moon, this is going to be heavier and thus sit lower than it will on Minmus by some amount. So we're going to have like adjustable suspension on our vehicles, which isn't a big deal. We can definitely do that. But it'll be something along the lines of this. Then we can set up some sort of small power generation. Now we're planning a full power generation module, so we don't need all that much power in our colony core. We can just do something kind of like this. So we extend those solar panels, and it's just going to be this. It's got some fuel, it's got an engine, it's got a hitchhiker storage container. What else do we need for the contract? That's the question that I have right now. Supporting at least 5 Kerbals. So, I mean, yeah, we do. We support, I believe, 7. Yes, we support 7. We need to have an engineer on the outpost. We need to land and maintain stability. So that's really, really basic. It has to have an antenna, a docking port, and can generate power. Okay, so I would like to get rid of this nose cone. We're going to modify our assembly up here. So we're going to put a very small fairing up here. And it's going to be weird looking. There's no doubt about that. But we're going to put a very small fairing here, a 1.25 meter fairing. And for the time being, it's just going to be like that. Then in our communications, we're going to put a relay antenna on this guy. A big ol' RA-15, if we can get away with that. Cool. So we'll build the fairing and bring it out like so. Oh, that last one didn't actually close. I kind of expected it to close there, but we'll just bring this up like so. I guess we have to bring it up here. Okay, very awkward, but that'll protect it on the way up. Cool. So we'll, of course, ditch this fairing fairly early on. So that'll be fine. What else do we need on this? Well, I'm actually thinking that we probably need to have some sort of remote guidance unit on here. Because I'm wondering, do we actually want to have a pilot on this thing? I'm leaning towards no. Which might mean that we want this module instead of this command pod. We could try that. So we put this guy here, we put the fairing on top of that, and have it be more along the lines of this. That seems reasonably viable to me. The only question is, what about the clearance on this docking port? We may need to have these docking ports actually be extendable. So, to that end, we could go into the Robotics tab, and we could grab, say, a 1P4 telescoping hydraulic cylinder. We put that here. And then we put the docking port on the end of it. It looks kind of weird. I need to get that turned around like this. It looks kind of weird, but it will function. And at that point, we can extend this out like so, if we need to. And if we really wanted to be clever here and kind of break the game slightly, we could recess in the telescoping hydraulic cylinders to be in here, so that it looks like this is attached here, but if we end up needing to, we can clip the camera in and grab, if I can get in here, we need to be in place mode, and then we can extend it out like so. The question is, will that cause any issues Kraken-wise? I don't know, maybe. And I would like to have these be mounted a little bit higher as well. So move it up like 1 tick there. Maybe... No, I think that's a good height. I think that's a good height. Okay, so this will be our core. This will function as a communication center, as well as a like temporary colonial center. Like, it's like a temporary habitation. We're going to have a science section. We're going to have a power section. We're going to have a mining section. And we're going to have a habitation section out here. That's going to be the plan. Cool. So that'll be just fine. We will go ahead and store these landing struts. There we go. Now, we could do the same thing with the landing struts that we've done here, but I suspect that landing on those telescoping cylinders is going to be not a great idea, Kraken-wise, so we'll probably avoid that. Although the latest patch did add in some additional things for that. Now, the real question is, do we need any more fuel than this? Do we need a second stage? That is an interesting question, and judging by this delta V, I'm guessing the answer to that is a solid no. I think that this is plenty of delta V to land on the moon. And on Minmus as well, I'm guessing. Yeah, this should be enough. Just going based on my gut instinct. Absolutely. So all we need here is an engineer, and I would like to have a remote guidance unit of some sort. I don't want to have a pilot tied up with this, is the thing. So if we do that, the best that we can do right now is like a Propidopadine Octo. Or a Hex. Which, the Hex can do a prograde retrograde hold. Which will have to be good enough. Okay, so size-wise. The Hex could fit here. In theory. Alternatively, it might be better off putting the Hex here. Like that. That actually fits nicely. Cool. Yeah, I think that'll do. And as far as the fairing goes, I think white is fine. Okay, so something along the lines of this would be our colony core. That sounds good to me. Let's go ahead and think about launching this. We do need to have an engineer in here. And who are we going to go for? Lenbert. Congratulations, Lenbert. You are going to be our first colonist. Cool. So we'll save that, and we'll put it out on the pad. We're going to need to decide where we want to park this, and we need to remember that if we don't have access to our communications network, bad things occur. Which reminds me, I haven't actually gotten all of the satellites for our communications network out yet, although I have gotten some. As you can see, there's been some progress on that front. We have our polar orbit, we have our equatorial orbit, and we have an equatorial orbit around the moon as well, but I have not gotten to the polar orbit here yet. We'll get there. For now, we're going to throttle up, SAS on, and I think, well, we should definitely check our staging here. Okay, that happens. Honestly, the fairing can be in its own stage, and then this happens. It's a very simple set of staging. I like how we're offset on the pad. That's pretty neat. Well, off we go to orbit. Cool. And we will begin pitching downrange here. Technically, we're yawing because I don't rotate to azimuth. Okay, let's go ahead and lock the prograde there. Fantastic. We're launching into the sunrise. Always neat. I like how we can see our landing site here. That's pretty neat, too. Excellent. So we're about 30 seconds to apoapsis here as we go up through the cloud cover. And this is all looking pretty good. We should have plenty of delta V to make this all happen. About another 35 seconds on our burn here before our side tanks disengage. And there's the sun. Cool. So we're traveling at about 700 meters per second over the surface right now. We're still a little bit more vertical speed than horizontal, and our apoapsis height is looking at about 45 kilometers at this time. 50 kilometers. We're just going to hold this attitude until this detaches, and then we can think about heading over to pure horizontal. 2, 1, mark. Clean detachment. Beautiful. So we're at like 90 kilometers here, and we just switched over into orbital mode, but I'm going to hop into stability assist here. And we are just going to position here. Beautiful. So we're just getting horizontal speed. Our vertical speed is decreasing. That is exactly what we need right now. We were drifting back towards prograde, probably due to aerodynamic forces. But I've now corrected that. And we won't have much for aerodynamic forces quite soon. And yeah, looking at this, we don't need a second stage here. We've got more than enough in the craft. This will be no problem. Cool. Although I am realizing that I didn't check our thrust to weight of this over the moon. I am realizing that. I just assumed it would be enough, and it likely is enough. Honestly, this should be lighter than our lander plus the maneuver module. And we have plenty of apoapsis here. This should be lighter than the lander plus maneuver module on the same engine, and that was like 3 point some over the moon. So we should have plenty of margin for that, in theory. But that is something that I should have double-checked. Okay, so we're going to position something like this. Fantastic. And we will prepare for that. Although, first, we can ditch our fairing. That no longer needs to be a thing. And we can also extend our solar panels. Cool. Just so that we don't run out of power. After all we've got here is Lenbert. And let's head over towards our burn position. This is only going to be 300 meters per second getting us into orbit. I'm just thinking here, this is going to get us to the moon and at least most of our braking burn, if not all of it. Okay, well, let's go ahead and warp. So obviously this is still overbuilt. We are planning on taking this thing other places though, so that'll be fine. And we're just going to continue to position here. And let's warp on forward. 30 seconds, 20, 10, and 2, 1, mark. Okay. So now we just hold prograde here until we enter orbit. And circularize it up. Close enough. Fantastic. So there we go. Moon is our destination, but we will get there next episode. You can leave your offerings to the engagement gods in the form of likes, comments, subscribes, and bell ringings, and a very special thank you to all of the channel members for making this video possible, including Casserole, ALS Gamer, Kentuin, James, Shadowwolf, MLohan80, Spartan News, Nick Smarty, Video Games Are Not Real, Dimitri H, Punching the Microphone, Unisil, Kadra, Rogue Corvid, and all the rest. And of course, you. Thank you for watching. If you'd like to support the channel, you can click the join button down below the video. And as always, I will see you all next time.